Homily for the 22nd Sunday in Ordinary Time, Year A. My dear friends in Christ, the readings of this Sunday remind us that if we truly want to bear authentic witness to Jesus in this life, we must be ready for persecution, trials, and temptations. Jesus does not promise us an easy way of life, a life without difficulties, a life without trials and temptation, a life that is free of sorrow. But he promises us his peace and ever-abiding presence in whatever we pass through in this life as Christians. In the first reading of today, we heard of the persecution of the prophet Jeremiah. Jeremiah was a faithful prophet of God who answered his prophetic calling with total commitment at a time of widespread infidelity in Israel, from about 628 to 580 BC. His message of truth, justice, and holiness was rejected by the religious and political authorities of the time, who conspired to destroy him by lying against him and distorting everything he said. The generality of the people, including his friends and family, ridiculed and discredited him. He was thrown into prison for his preaching and was threatened with a violent death if he did not change the tune of his preaching. He suffered so much that he often wanted to give up, but he could not do so because there was a fire burning in his heart, which all his sufferings and pains could not quench. In Jeremiah's torments, he once accused the Lord, as we heard it today, of seducing him into becoming a prophet and deceiving him about the personal sufferings this mission would entail. But in all, the Lord did not abandon him. His mighty hand was a shield protecting him. In the Gospel, Jesus made it clear that his way is that of self-denial, the way of the cross. He told his disciples that the Son of Man was destined to suffer and die on the cross. But Peter remonstrated with him that such will not happen to him. In the Gospel reading of last Sunday, Simon Peter was called the rock upon which Jesus would build his church. Yet Peter continued to show the limitations of his understanding of Jesus' identity as the Messiah. This was the general conception of the Jews about the Messiah. They hoped the Messiah would be a political figure, a king who would rescue the Jews from the oppression of the Roman government. This is what Peter envisioned when he confessed Jesus to be the Messiah. Almost all the other disciples share the same view as Peter. That is why they kept asking Jesus when he would establish his kingdom on earth. And in Matthew 20, verse 20, the mother of the two sons of Zebedee came to Jesus with her two sons, James and John, and begged Jesus to allow her two sons to reign with him, one on the right and the other on the left, when he establishes his kingdom on earth. In today's gospel passage, however, Jesus is beginning to teach his disciples that he will be the Messiah in a different way. He will be more like the suffering servant described by the prophet Isaiah than a political liberator. It is through his suffering and death that he will deliver us, not from the clutches of any human authority, as the Jews had expected, but from the bondage of Satan and sin. It is through his wounds that we shall be healed. He will reign forever on the throne of David, not in a physical realm, but in the spiritual realm. Jesus also made it clear that those who want to follow him are called to a similar way of life, a life of self-denial, a life of cross-bearing. He said, we are to carry our cross and follow him. Crosses are difficulties and challenges we may encounter in our lives here on earth. There may be marital problems, sickness, disappointments, accusations, bereavement, and so on. When we carry these things and follow Jesus, he promises us his peace and his grace and his ever-abiding presence in our lives. This is part of what St. Paul is advocating in the second reading of today, that we offer our whole being as a living sacrifice to God. That entails allowing the will of God to be accomplished in our lives. For the greatest sacrifice we can offer to God is allowing his will to be accomplished in our lives. That is aligning our lives to the will of God at all times and enduring whatever sufferings will come our way of life as Christians.